Hey team, of all the videos I've created, I think this one is actually the most timeless and has some of the most important advice that no matter where you are in your financial journey, you can take advantage of. A lot of people look for stress-free ways to make money, despite everything you see online about getting rich quick. Making money in a stress-free way over the long run is a really important skill to learn. So that's what we're going to be talking about in this video, and everyone can take advantage of it. So it's called compound interest, and that's basically where you can make money on the money that you have. And it sounds kind of crazy, but basically what happens is you make interest on your money, and then you make interest on your money plus interest, and then you make more interest on your interest, and more interest on your interest. Isn't that just so interesting? So starting today with compound interest will make you far better off financially than if you were to wait 1 year, 5 years, or 10 years. And we'll be able to see how your money can actually grow and how time is actually such an important factor to this as we dive into this video. Despite everything you see online about all these different ways that you can make money really quickly, investing in all these crazy assets and these new things that are out there, the large majority of people throughout the entire world actually just want a stress-free way to make money that has very little risk or a lot less risk than some of those other crazy investment ideas that might be out there. So if that's what you're looking for, you're in the right place. And no matter what your financial situation is, compound interest is something that you definitely can be taking advantage of. For me learning personally, visual examples are some of the best ways that I'm able to learn. So I'm going to walk through a couple different scenarios showing you the different ways that you can actually make money with compound interest. And then you'll be able to kind of decide which one's the best for you. And I'll show you how over time you can make a lot more money compared to if you just do it for a short amount of time. So let's say that you have, in this first example, money in a savings account, and they pay you a certain percent of interest every year on the money that you have deposited in that account. Let's say that that amount is, just for the sake of this example, $3,000. So you have $3,000 in the bank, and they're going to be paying you 3% interest. And I know that might not be super reasonable given the current rates of interest rates for savings accounts, but just for the sake of this example, let's say they're paying you 3% compounding interest annually on your $3,000 that you have in the account. So after the first year, you put your $3,000 in there, you're basically going to be making $90 in interest, or 3% of $3,000. So at the end of year one, you now have $3,090. Now where compounding comes into play is that in the next year, in year two, instead of making interest on $3,000 again, you'll actually make interest on your new balance, that $3,090. So in year two, 3% of $3,090 is about $93 if you round up. Now that might not seem like too big of a deal, and that is actually why compounding can be so hard to wrap your head around and so hard for people to actually get involved with it. But if we actually extrapolate this over 25 years, what you'll see is that if you just start with $3,000 and you don't add any more money to that and it remains constant at the 3% interest rate, your $3,000 after 25 years will now be worth $6,200. And that's pretty much free money. You didn't have to do anything for it. All you did was put an initial deposit of $3,000 in the bank account, and it now turned into $6,200. And again, now this might not seem as too big of a deal, but let's actually look at this next example where we actually talk about investing in the stock market. One of the best ways to take advantage of compound interest is actually by investing in the stock market. So in our example, with the bank account, we used an interest rate of 3%. But on average, over the last 100 years, the stock market, when you reinvest dividends, has returned about 10% to investors. And it's actually talking about just investing in like the S&P as a whole rather than one specific stock. But now let's say, so instead of getting 3%, you're actually going to be getting 10%. So if you invest that same $3,000 in the stock market, you're not depositing any more money. After 25 years, you're actually going to have about $32,000. So in the first example with the 3% interest rate, you only had $6,200. Now you have about $32,000 in your stock market account. And that just kind of shows you how the interest rate can really drastically affect the returns that you're able to get over the long run, depending on what investment vehicle you're actually using to use compound interest. And these examples that I'm going through are going to keep getting better. So this next one, let's assume that instead of just having an initial deposit of $3,000, every month, instead of you going to the bar, you're going to actually take the $50 that you might have spent going out to eat, and you're going to actually add it to your investment account. So you start with $3,000, and then every month after that for the next 25 years, you're going to add $50 to your investment account. Here's what that would look like. You now would have invested $18,000 in the account with your initial deposit and also your monthly deposits, but your account would now be worth $91,500 compared to the $32,000 if you had not invested any more. So this now is showing you the power of the initial deposit plus additional consistent monthly deposits over the long period of time. So you can just kind of see from that first example with the bank account how you're growing from $6,000 to $30,000 to now $90,000. And this next example is even more powerful. And I could play around with these calculators all day. They're extremely fun. You can kind of just put in different monthly contributions and you can see how your money can grow over time. For me, this is really exciting. I don't know about for you, but let's check out this next example here. Right before we get into this other example, it's a really important note that we've talked about how time is so important here. And even though over 100 years the stock market has returned 10% on average, that does not mean that every single year the stock market you can expect to get 10%. Some years it might go up by 20%, some years it might go down by 30%, but over the long run it can even out. And this is why it's really important not to be trying to time the market, and a consistent strategy over a really long period of time allows those averages to actually even out on your account, and you can get closer to the mean rather than having to go with the highs and lows and pick your spot in the stock market that you're actually going to get invested in. It can reduce a lot of stress if you're doing it more consistently over the long run. That way you're not having to try and make those really hard decisions that in many cases are just not possible. Time is our friend. So let's say instead of starting today, you actually wait 10 years to get started. I want to show you how that actually affects your returns with your stock market account. So we're still going to use the $3,000 deposit, the $50 monthly contribution. If you were to only do that over 15 years, your returns are now $31,000 compared to the 25 years, which gets you to $91,000. And look at this, if you were to do it for 35 years, so 10 extra years, then you would actually have $246,000. So these changes are just really important to see, because even though at the start it might look like you're really not making that much more money, over the long run, by you being able to make money on the interest that your account is making, it allows those to exponentially grow compared to if you have this for just a short amount of time. It's not going to allow your money to grow as much as if you started a little bit earlier than waiting until maybe you have some more money to actually invest. So just in those 10 more years, from 25 years to 35 years, you go from 91,000 to 246,000. And a lot of people are looking for easy ways to make money. They want to know how they can grow their wealth over the future. And in my opinion, this is one of the easiest things to actually take advantage of. Even though it takes a long time and it's something that requires patience and diligence, it is something that you can take advantage of in a stress-free way. And in many times, it's extremely easy to actually get started with. So let's dive into how you can actually take advantage of some of these compound interest options with investments. The main reason why some of this is so hard for people to actually take advantage of and stick with is because it requires an incredible amount of patience and determination over a really long period of time. And I'm sure all of you can relate. I can relate. It's really hard sometimes to stay patient, especially in this world where we keep getting notifications all the time. So what we've seen even in the most recent weeks is all this GameStop frenzy. We see a lot of stuff going on with cryptocurrency. So this is something that's never going to touch that stuff. It's only going to kind of rely on the very average stock market returns that are going to happen over a long period of time. So patience, discipline are extremely important traits to have here. And getting started, even if you have a small amount of money, can really help you in the long run. The other takeaway that's really important to note from those examples is how that monthly contribution can also add to the gains that you're able to make through compound interest. And I'm in no way trying to tell you how to spend your money, but for me personally, it's been really cool looking at these graphs because it allows me to see that maybe if I don't go to a coffee shop a few times a week, or maybe if I don't go out to eat one night, I'm able to actually add that money to an investment account. And you can spend money on whatever makes you happy, but sometimes it can be really hard, especially if you're young and just getting started in your financial journey, to be able to see how your money can contribute to your wealth over the long run. So some of these compound calculators or these compounding examples can just kind of show you that, hey, instead of spending money on something that maybe isn't worthwhile to me today, I can actually be making 10x that in the future by putting it into some investments and allowing my money to grow. So it's just a way for you to kind of conceptualize some of the expenses you might have and see how over the future it can kind of allow you to be more financially free, maybe retire early, whatever it might be, but just kind of help you to achieve those financial goals, even though in the near term, it's really hard to actually see some of those gains. It's never too late to get started. And I think the key to this is really just patience. No matter how much money you might have to start, everyone's financial situation is going to be a little bit different. So just remember that getting started now, you don't have to have a certain amount of money to get started. Just do whatever you can and find ways over time to maybe adjust that. Maybe you add more to your monthly contribution, or maybe you've deposited enough already after 10 years and you don't need to contribute anymore every month. So everyone's financial situation is going to be a little bit different. I think the biggest takeaway is just that compound interest really helps you a lot over time. And the more you're in it, the more you can make. So getting started now is a really important thing. Thanks so much for being here. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you got something out of it of value. I would truly, truly appreciate if you would be so kind to potentially share this video or give it a like, give it a subscribe. I hate asking for likes. I feel so weird doing it, but I put a lot of time into these videos. I'm hoping I can bring you some value. So it really helps me to kind of stay motivated and keep on it for you. But thanks so much for being here. And hopefully I'll see you next time on Quinn Talks Money.